You know that feeling of discovering something fundamental about the world for the very first time? Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not digging through a textbook or dense research paper. Instead, we're going on a journey through an actual student's biology lab notebook to rediscover the core stories of life, one experiment at a time. All right, let's dive in. This right here is our map, the index page. And just look at it. You can see the real handwriting, the list of experiments, and even the teacher's signatures signing off on each completed step. This is so much more than a table of contents, right? It's a genuine record of curiosity and learning, a personal story that goes all the way from isolating DNA to analyzing a family tree. So, where do you even start a journey like this? Well, you've got to start small, super small. Before we can get to the big organisms, we have to understand the instruction manual that's hidden inside every single one of their cells. We're talking about the blueprint of life itself. I mean, that sounds like a massive question, doesn't it? The code for a living thing seems like it'd be impossibly complex and totally invisible. But as our student shows us, the answer can start in a very, very familiar place. In this case, it starts with a banana. The whole procedure is basically like a recipe for revealing a secret. First, you just mash the banana to break all the cells apart. Then you filter out the lumpy bits. Next, you add some enzymes. Think of it kind of like soap to dissolve the membranes around the cells. And then comes the magic step. You pour in some chilled alcohol, which makes the DNA suddenly unable to stay dissolved. It all just clumps together. Now, this is what I absolutely love. These aren't polished textbook diagrams. These are the students' own hand-drawn illustrations. This is them processing the information, turning written steps into a visual game plan. You can see the little blender, the filter, the final beaker. This is science in action, captured right on the page in pencil. And this is the payoff, the moment of discovery. After all that work, this is what the student sees. And they don't just write down some boring observation like precipitate observed. No, they describe it with this real sense of wonder, shining white DNA, like a fine thread. This is that amazing moment when a concept from a book becomes a real, tangible thing you can see. Okay, so seeing the code is amazing, but that's really just the beginning. For any organism to grow or heal or simply exist, that code has to be copied billions of times perfectly. And that brings us to the really elegant process of cell division. So, to see that in action, the student looked at an onion root tip, a place that's growing like crazy, so it's packed with cell division. Their drawing captures the key phases of mitosis. It really is like this carefully choreographed dance where one cell duplicates all its DNA and then splits into two identical daughter cells. It's life's own little photocopy machine. All right, so we've copied cells inside one organism. The next logical leap is figuring out how that genetic code gets passed on to create a whole new organism. We're scaling up from the cellular level now to look at the fascinating mechanics of reproduction. And this sketch here captures one of the most incredible journeys in nature. A tiny pollen grain lands and then it grows a little tube, navigating all the way down through the flower to deliver its genetic cargo to the ovule. It's basically a microscopic mission, all to create a single seed. But how does that pollen even get there? Well, the notebook explores two main strategies. You've got plants like corn pollinated by the wind. They don't waste any energy on fancy petals or nectar. They just produce tons of lightweight pollen and let it fly. But then you have insect-pollinated flowers, like a sunflower, that go all out with bright colors and sugary rewards to attract a reliable delivery service. And this journey isn't just for plants. The notebook also has this really beautiful, simple drawing of a mammalian blastula. It might not look like much, just a tiny, hollow ball of about 100 cells, but this is a huge step in early development for mammals. That hollow space is the stage where cells start to move and specialize. It's the foundational blueprint for an entire complex organism. You know, no organism is an island. As soon as life begins, it has to interact with everything around it. So now we're going to zoom out to see that bigger picture. The whole complex web of competition, cooperation, and evolution that connects every living thing. And one of the biggest clues to how interconnected life is comes from studying something called homologous structures. The idea is pretty simple. Different animals can have limbs that do totally different things, but are actually built from the same ancestral parts. It's like a deep time signature of a shared family history. And these drawings from the notebook showed this perfectly. In plants, a tendril for climbing and a thorn for defense can both come from the same basic part of the stem. In animals, the bones in a bat's wing are arranged in the same basic pattern as the bones in a human arm. Same blueprint, totally different functions. But here's the twist. Sometimes nature solves the same problem more than once, completely from scratch. That's where we get analogous structures. These are body parts that do the same job and might even look similar, but they evolved completely independently from different starting points. The student's example here is fantastic. The wing of a butterfly and the wing of a cockroach. They're both used for flight, sure, but they are built in fundamentally different ways and have totally separate evolutionary origins. It's a classic case of what we call convergent evolution, two different paths leading to the exact same solution. Of course, not all interactions in nature are so neutral. The notebook then takes the dive into the darker side of biology, parasitism. The student looks at a few different organisms that survive by living in or on a host, and yeah, they often cause some serious diseases along the way. And even here, there's just incredible diversity. These drawings show the huge difference between parasites. On one side, you have the microscopic, single-celled Endemiga. On the other, the complex, multicellular Ascaris roundworm. It's a powerful reminder that life's drive to survive can take a lot of different forms. So, with all this complexity out there, how do scientists actually study life on a bigger scale? Well, this final section of the notebook explores the tools biologists use to find patterns in populations and trace how genes flow through generations. And it can start with something as simple as this, a quadrat. It's just a square frame, but it's a super fundamental tool in ecology. By tossing this frame down in a habitat and just counting the organisms inside, you can sample a tiny area and get a really good estimate about the entire ecosystem. And this is how a raw observation becomes powerful data. The student takes their counts from the quadrant and calculates the population density for each species. All of a sudden, a seemingly random patch of ground is transformed into a measurable community, showing which species are common and which ones are pretty rare. And finally, we arrive here. A hand-drawn pedigree chart, a family tree, tracking blood types. This one diagram just beautifully connects everything we've seen. It's about the genetic code, it's about reproduction, it's about patterns in a population, but it's also a deeply human story of a family. It's where the science of biology meets personal history. From the code hidden in a banana to the genetic legacy of a family, this one notebook has shown us an entire universe of biology. It just proves that the biggest stories are all around us, waiting for a curious mind. A single notebook can hold a universe. So the final question is, what will you discover?